reading this week, I've been reading some really good quotes about just motivating yourself, and I came across a quote from a motivational speaker by the name of Les Brown. And if you're not familiar with him, just Google who he is. But listen to this quote, right? So Les Brown says, "The graveyard is the richest place on earth, because it is here that you will find all the hopes and dreams that will never be fulfilled, the books that were never written, the songs that were never sung, the inventions that were never shared, the cures that were never discovered, all because someone was too afraid to take that first step, keep with the problem, or determined to carry out their dream." Wow. The graveyard is the richest place on earth. Oh my gosh. So what a statement, right? What a statement. When you really think about the depth of the statement. So I'm not sure if it's the fact that I'm at this middle-aged stage in my life where I am a lot more open to look at my life and to think about death, and not think about it in a morbid way, but to think about it in the context of saying that when I get to that stage, I just want to know and feel content within myself that I try to go beyond the norm, or that I did things that made me happy in my life. So that's why I think I am very open to discussing this article I came across, right, called 5 Regrets of the Dying, right? Because in reading it, I just, I'm curious about what they said, and it kind of gives me a gauge in terms of my own thinking and the point of my own mortality, right? And I believe that in this case, it was talking about people who are in hospices and things that they may have said at that point of being terminally ill, right? And I want to share that because I think that we're living in a very unbalanced world, right? We're living in an environment where we constantly almost like facing life and death, and many of us don't want to think about it. But if you look at how the news is going, if you look at what is happening around the world, we are constantly being thrust into issues of life and death. So I want to share the 5 regrets of the dying, in the hopes that it touches some of us to go beyond the everyday and just trying to define and shape a better life. So in the 5 regrets of the dying, here is number 5. I wish I had the courage to express myself. I wish I had the courage to express myself. So I'm kind of gauging that now in terms of my own self. I said, okay, well, I'm on YouTube. I created this channel, Blossom Hindsight. So no, that won't be a regret for me. Because when you're out here and when you open yourself up so publicly, you know, um, there's nothing I regret about it, because I know the reason why I am doing what I'm doing in terms of my channel. And it does take a certain level of courage. And if you remember, I said in another video that this is my year that I would live with courage. And I think because I knew that I would be stepping into, you know, this role. So that regret I won't have. All right. So moving on, right. Another regret out of the 5 that the dying have is, I wish I had let myself be happier. I wish I had let myself be happier. That's an interesting one, because in order for you to really understand the level of your happiness, you have to be willing to constantly check yourself and to define what makes you happy or what makes you unhappy. It's good to check yourself, right? Don't get stuck in the day-to-day. Don't get stuck in the norm. Okay, so third regret, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. That is a third regret that the dying have. Well, for me, I know that I have only a handful of friends. That's an iffy one, because I think there I can do a much better job in terms of that. Yeah. So that's something that I will need to really pull myself up on. So that does not become a regret for me. Okay. So next regret out of 5. I wish I hadn't worked so much. I wish I hadn't worked so much. So I'm going on the basis that here's someone who regrets maybe working so hard, or maybe so much in terms of that, to the point where it impacted upon family, perhaps. Because some of us do have to work hard just because of the nature of the jobs or careers that we have. But I'm thinking in this case, when the regret is, I wish I didn't have to work so hard, is because there was a choice made between working extensively and not balancing that out with family. So that's what they call work-life balance. Yeah, okay. So continuing on, the last regret out of 5 is, and I want to read this one to you because it's a little bit long, not having the courage to live a life true to yourself, not the life others expected of you. Now that is a huge regret, because I think and I think that a lot of us do this, and I see this especially now, like I said, that I'm in this middle-age stage of life, where we have so many responsibilities, so many things that we're juggling. And remember my video, what kind of sandwich are you? And I explained that in this midlife, you're raising the younger generation, you may be responsible for the older generation. So you find yourself juggling so many life responsibilities that you do, or I do, sometimes feel as if I am living a life that is expected of me, taking on the responsibilities because they're expected of me. And perhaps not living a life that is really true to myself. So that is a huge, I can see where that can be a huge regret. So listen again, not having the courage to live a life true to yourself. I think it can't be helped to some degree. I think we define ourselves based upon what we are responsible for, and in addition to that, we kind of get caught up in the day-to-day, the routine. The day-to-day becomes the norm, and sometimes we feel that maybe we're too old, or we've gone past a certain stage in our lives where we can fulfill certain dreams, so we just kind of settle into a routine, or we just settle into a comfort zone, you know. And if it works for you as an individual, fine, but it is listed as one of the top 5 regrets of dying. So think on that, and think on the quote that I read earlier about what Les Brown says, because when you think about it, the whole idea, when he says that the graveyard is one of the richest places in the world, whew, that's a little bit scary, right? Especially knowing that we only have one life and one time to do this, you know. But what do you think? Do you think that of the 5 regrets of the dying that I just mentioned, does that mean anything to you? You know, does it make you think more in terms of where you are now in your life? Does it make you think about anything that you might regret? Because one thing I, for myself, have told myself, that anything that I do in my life at this point in time, I refuse to live with any regret. So therefore, it forces me to make decisions that I know will be true, that I am being true to myself. So I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I hope that my hindsight has and will inspire you, and that you will find your own way